Welcome back to the Hair of the Dog podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Begley, and on today's episode, I am chatting with Heather about my dear, sweet grandmother and how she has managed to still be kicking in her own house at 106 and a half years old, and how I realized the other day that she has some pretty ridiculous secrets to life that we should all be applying to ours for success in our personal life and, of course, in our business. If you want more happiness, longevity, and positivity in your life, well, you're definitely going to want to join us for this episode. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, Nicole here from Hair of the Dog, and I am so excited to geek out today for our first conversation for the new year, all about getting organized, getting our systems in place. It's going to be awesome. And I want to welcome you guys, or welcome to my show, help you guys. I want you guys to help me welcome to the show Shanice Miller from the Taskly Group, who is an automation queen. And we are going to impart some incredible systems knowledge on you in the next hour. Shanice, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Nicole.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Yeah, when I saw your email come through and I was like, oh, systems.
Yes.
Yes. Let's talk about it. So tell me a little bit about your background and how you got into this whole systems world.
Yes, definitely. So once, I don't know what it is, but everyone loves talking about systems now. But in the very beginning, systems were not sexy. And I'm sure for a lot of people, systems still are not sexy to them. And that's okay. That's why we definitely do that. Systems weren't sexy to me in the beginning either, but I had to learn how sexy they could be. So I run a business operations firm for service-based business owners like professional photographers. And usually they'll have messy systems or they'll have no systems in place. And now what we do is we help to make their daily activities more efficient and their business run smoother so that we can maximize your impact and make sure that no clients slip between the cracks. And now, like I said, I did not start off with sexy systems at all. In fact, my systems were so chaotic. I had an original business. It was an educational consulting business. And literally, I didn't have any systems set up for that business at all. And it wasn't until one Friday evening, I was sitting down at my desk at the end of the day, and I was just feeling so exhausted. I went to go check my books. And what should have been like a very excited, joyous time, because I had like my best week in business, made an 8K week. And I was just on the verge of tears. And yes, and that was just from being so overwhelmed, just so I was doing everything in my business. I was running ads, I was doing the sales calls, I was doing the client work, I was trying to set everything up, and I did not know how to streamline anything. So, just sitting there doing all of this work week after week, it just really weighed on me, and to the point where I wanted to close my business.
Yeah. I think a lot of us have had that. I know I've had that sometimes where it's like you go to Starbucks and you're like, maybe I'll just be a barista because like they go home at the end of the day and they don't think about work and they like work 40 hours a week. I mean, they have insurance and benefits. I think we've all been there. And I, work with a lot of photographers, specifically pet photographers. And one of the regular pain points that people have is managing the processes in their business, especially like managing inquiries. You were talking about like, what happens when something comes into your business? Do you have a system that goes through it? And I think a lot of people, I'm jumping all over the place because I'm so excited about this conversation. But I think a lot of people look at systems when they're starting their business and they don't want to be constrained because they think that system is going to, like creating systems is going to limit their freedom. But in actuality, creating the systems brings so much more freedom because now you know what is happening and so many things are happening on their own and you have white space to think about all of the new things
So
that can actually grow your
I
business?
know for me, systems was this gap in the marketplace where I had taken courses and I had mentors that were teaching me the business, but no one really talked about systems in any of the course programs or anything like that that I took. So that was kind of like that missing piece. They always focused in on the marketing, how to get more clients. And so, yes, that worked, but nothing about like, how do you really support those clients in the best way possible? And then what I hear from some of my clients are they're concerned that with a system, it's going to be too cookie cutter, or, their clients aren't going to
Hmm.
have this type of like personalization. And I'm like, we can still put your energy, your personality into the systems, into some of the emails and these automations that we're putting forward. And you can still have touch points outside of that too. But we're just giving someone a nice routine where you don't have to write those custom emails each time.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I feel like a lot of people, that's probably one of the reasons that they maybe are a little bit hesitant to dive into some systems, is because they think that they're going to lose that personal touch. If you were like a brand new photographer in business and you're just like, I don't even know where to start. Like, what comes first, really? Is it like, do you figure out what your process is? Do you start to implement the system? Do you look at the system first and then do your process? Like, where do you even start to go into this little system
So
hole?
I know that's a really good question. It's that chicken or the egg question,
Hmm.
which is sometimes hard to say. I work with a lot of established businesses, and I've really helped a lot of 6, 7, and 8 figure businesses work to scale. So they usually have a pain point or something that they really want to pinpoint and streamline a little bit more to get started. But for someone that's just starting out, I would say before trying to make a lot of processes and things like that, what are the very first steps? So I would say like bringing on the clients, because you need clients before you can do any work.
Hmm.
So I would say I do this process called task mapping, where we would map out exactly what do we do, what do we want to say, how do we want the person to feel when they interact with us before they become a client. So I would say start there in that marketing area and section to say like, okay, how am I going to reach out to people? Are you going to do in-person events? Usually someone who's like very new, they'll find success with
Hmm.
those in-person or face-to-face networking meetup groups, or if you have some flyers or things like that. And then you'll kind of map out like, how can we, and we automate a lot of stuff, but like, how are we tracking where people are coming from and how people are coming from
Hmm.
are we getting referrals? So that kind of goes down the pipeline as well. And then when a person becomes a client, what do we want to do? Are we going to do a phone call, or are we going to send them an email? Is that person usually ready to jump on because we have a lower tier ticket service? Or are we doing a
Hmm.
higher tier service where that person needs to have a little bit more kind of like talking to on the phone?
Yeah.
So all of those things.
Yeah, I would say most of us listening to this podcast generally are the higher ticket boutique service for a photography client. So usually the first step is getting that person on a phone call or a Zoom or some sort of
Okay.
pre-session consultation. And yeah, you mentioned too the importance of
Yes.
tracking, which I 100% agree with. So many times I ask people, well, what are your numbers? What's your
Mhm.
average sale? Where are your people coming from? How many inquiries did you get? How many converted? And they're like, I don't know. Or they might say, I feel like nobody converts. So I'm like, okay, well, how many people have contacted you and how many booked? Well, I think this or that.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, if you don't track it, right, you're going to like start making up these stories, not maybe know your numbers. One of our students and coaches in my academy just actually posted this morning because she went through her numbers for this past year of, like, I forget the exact numbers, but like 135 people inquired and like 75 people
Yes.
booked. And of the, what is that left? Like 60 people or so that didn't book, only 4 of those people didn't book because of price, like that actually said because of price. And so many times photographers get in their head of just like, well, the reason nobody's booking me, and I think probably every service provider does this, that they just assume the reason people aren't booking is because of price. But I mean, it's such a small percentage that actually say that. And the people that don't get back to you, I mean, we'll just never know, right? But we just automatically assign it to that. So, oh man, I love like the tracking working hand in hand with the systems, because the systems can maybe give you that great way to track.
Yeah, I actually had a client and we had to put this in place for that particular person because when we got on the phone to talk about what exactly was going on in the business and like what would you need most help in, I asked him like, okay, so what are your numbers? And he said 1 month 3,000, the next month, and he had to like manually calculate what the deposits were in the account. And I was just like, oh man, you should be able to see that at a glance. It shouldn't have to be like you're taking out your calculator to figure out what it is, not knowing off the top of your head because you're not going to know what you're producing. So it's so important to really know your numbers, to track where they're coming from. And I asked them as well, what are you doing? I'm on Facebook, I'm on YouTube, I'm on TikTok, I'm sending out flyers, and I'm like, okay, well, where are the clients coming from? I think referrals, like, are you really tracking, which are the referrals? Who's giving you the clients that you really want and your ideal clients? And what areas are giving you clients that maybe you don't necessarily like, or they don't have the price point that you're looking for? So those are very important metrics to track and to really streamline in your business, because none of us really want to do accounting in our own business. But if you have something that's incorporated into a system, then it's like, okay, oh, this is just quick, nice, easy dashboard. It shows me.
I love that. What would you recommend? Because, you could definitely do like a spreadsheet, something like that, but that's going to be some manual entry. Like, what are some hacks that you recommend for an easy way to start to track some of these metrics?
So a lot of times you can like link up, and I don't want to get too technical with the audience, but you can like link up or feed into your systems with say if you have a QuickBooks or a different type of program that's like accounting type service, but someone who's very basic, yes, a nice spreadsheet for the very beginning starts, and you can have this into your project management tool where after you say do your call, it pops up as your next task that you're going to input it into the spreadsheet so that you'll put in your notes and things like that, and you'll update the column on the spreadsheet and it's already incorporated into it. But it doesn't have to be anything too technical, because especially if you're just doing one extra, person, or is this person going to convert, or, just putting in something to say, okay, let me have this task that recurs so that I know to follow up with this person.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, making it simple that works for you, for sure. I teach that a lot, of just keeping it simple until you need to, maybe you're starting out your business and you're having like 25, 30 clients. Yeah, you can 100% kind of track that stuff a little bit more manually. But if you're scaling up or you're a more high volume business, you're going to probably want to look at different systems that start to automate some of those things. But while we're talking about metrics, are there any maybe specific metrics that you recommend that photographers track?
Ooh, that's a good question. So, I mean, photographers, any service-based business, you need to be tracking, of course, those metrics that you talked about in the very beginning, which are, how many leads are you getting? And it could be monthly, depending on how much volume you have, but how many leads are you getting monthly? Okay, how many of those leads are converting to sales calls? How many of those sales calls are converting to actual people who are paying? What is your conversion rate? Do you need to increase, because all these things tell you like, okay, do I need to get some sales training? Do I need to increase my, marketing, or do I need to just be better at closing people on the phone? What are certain things that I can do, or where I can get help in certain areas? So, I mean, of course, we incorporate Google Analytics into certain things. There are other tracking mechanisms depending on what you're using, that we would incorporate into those systems so that they can all go into play.
Yeah, I like that. I also love tracking each step. Like, we're talking about the inquiries. So we're tracking the number of leads. We're tracking the number of people that book a call. We're tracking the number of people that convert from the call. Because then when you start to track each step, you can see like, oh, I have a major malfunction of people, like the leads converting to the call. So maybe I don't need more leads, but I need to
Yes.
focus on this part of my business to get people on the phone. And then you see like, oh, once they're on the phone, it's like a 95% booking rate that continues from there. So we love to get in our head and make up stories of all these different things of why things aren't working or what we think needs to happen. But if we start tracking those metrics, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. It is right there and it tells you exactly where to focus in your business. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love it. I love it. Okay. So, yeah, inquiries I think are definitely one of the areas that can benefit photographers the most from having systems. Of course, we have editing systems too,
Yes.
for like once you photograph, bring your photos in and edit them and
Or if you have an
order
editor,
and,
we can
yeah. Oh,
streamline.
even
Yes,
better.
we can streamline. So a lot of systems I help with was hiring because certain photographers, they'll have some
Mhm.
others, editors underneath them or, somebody, a different photographer who's supposed to put in certain work. So a lot of times we'll do like a employee or contractor sequence of tasks that they need to complete each time. And this is to reduce
Yeah.
errors so that the person can give you the same high level quality without you having to keep going back and forth with telling them, oh, I wanted you to edit this out, and this out. Now, each time that what you do when you're going through the edit, you're telling this person, here's this checklist. You need to check off these items, making sure that you edited this out. Maybe you put this in the front or the background, adding in your logo and to the end of it, or, on
Mhm.
certain areas where you might add your logo in so that you're still promoting yourself. Those are all things that you can do with, any subcontractors or employees that you might have underneath you or helping you in the business that you can really streamline. Because if you have to go in and tell someone each step of the way that, every time someone else new comes in, or if someone, is in the middle of editing and they have an emergency,
Mhm.
now someone else can jump in and say, oh, they already edited these parts and I just need to finish off these areas.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Absolutely. That is critical. I mean, it's kind of the point in my business where, quite frankly, after we're done recording this podcast, I don't even know what happens because Venus, who is amazing, thank you, Venus, who's going to be editing this podcast, then takes it and pushes it through all of our little processes back there that we created. And Venus and Liz keep it updated. And yeah, like these processes is what gives you the freedom, again, to focus on the important pieces of our business because, I don't have to be focused on, okay, now once this is edited, I need to make sure that this
Mhm.
is uploaded over here and then this goes over there. So that's really, really easy. I do want to talk really quickly about this hiring piece because a lot of people, especially in the photography world in general, are one man,
One man band.
solopreneurs, one woman shows. Yep. and and I think there's a lot of fear around hiring because I don't know. I think a lot of us maybe have this myth in our head that when you hire someone that all of a sudden you're paying someone 40 hours a week plus benefits and retirement and like all of these things and how can my business
Mhm.
sustain that. um so that's the first hurdle, and then like the second hurdle becomes okay, how often or how am I finding them? Like if you get over that first hurdle of they don't have to be full time, that they could be a
Yes.
subcontractor, they could be a project base, they could be 3 hours a week. Then you have to get over the hiring piece of where to find people and how to hire and all that stuff. Do you have any advice for people around?
Yes.
Oh man, that first hire.
I know the first hire can be the scariest. I actually have a free mini training for your audience, 3 steps to automate systems in
Oh,
your
nice.
business to scale to 6, 7, and 8 figures. I'll tell them at the end how they can get that. But we talk a little bit about the hiring system. So it's really about mapping out what you need to hire for first. So having a nice
Mhm.
goal in mind. So part of my 3 steps are my 3-step framework, which is the define, design, and do method. So first we have to define what is our goal for hiring. What is the purpose this person is going to serve for me? Are they trying to free up my time? Are they going to take over this aspect in my business? Really getting clear on that so that we know what it is, the responsibilities we need to hire for, how we can script that job description, and what we're looking for in a hire so that we are hiring correctly. Then
Mm-hmm.
the define stage is when we are mapping out exactly what we want this person to do. So taking all the things you do, because you are this expert, you know exactly what it is that you want this person to do or that you're looking for. And you will map out those steps, either if you were doing it before as the one man band that we like to say, and you have to map out, what are the things you want someone to pay attention to. Even if it's really specific, if you are doing some photo editing and you want this person to really say, like, okay, we like to lighten up certain photos and darken other ones, giving them an outline of kind of your process, your thought process
Mm-hmm.
behind what you do and how you do certain things. So that's part of that define stage, defining all of those tasks, mapping out what do you want the person to do, even making some short Loom videos for that person
Mm-hmm.
to really
Yeah, I love Loom
follow.
videos. I do that for my editor. It's just like, all right, this is how I edit. And then you have
Yes.
that living on there as a reference. And yeah, so
Yes,
easy.
it is very easy, and it really helps to streamline instead of you keep going back and forth with someone telling them like, okay, no, you missed this step. You missed this step. It's like, okay, this person knows. And then we, of course, we have it in a checklist as well, making sure that the person is hitting those milestones that you really want them to do. And then the last stage is the do part, where we're actually implementing this into a project management tool. We are putting out all the steps. We are adding in the automation so it automatically notifies someone instead of you having to send out that email saying to your subcontractor of, hey, can you do this now? Soon as that task is finished on your end, it goes hands off to the person. They're emailed automatically. They're assigned to the task automatically. They're assigned a due date. That is my big thing. If it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have a due date, it won't get done. So they need to know, like, do you need this turnaround time 1 day, 2 days? And that can be automatically added each time for that specific role. So all of those things are
Yeah.
set up and streamlined so that you can hire someone, you know what you're hiring for, and that you can get that good person on board that's going to fulfill what you need. But you're also communicating and loving on that new hire, showing them exactly what it is that you do need.
Yeah, I'm sure that helps them too, because then they know the
Yes.
expectations. If you can think back to good jobs that you've had and maybe more challenging
Yes.
jobs that you've had, I have a feeling the challenging ones are the ones that weren't clearly defined of like, what am I supposed to be doing
Yes, I
here?
actually had a client and he came to me with that same problem. And I asked him, like, okay, what are you doing with hiring? And he was just like, well, the last hires I hired just didn't do anything. And I'm like, what does that mean? They just didn't do anything. So, like, as we're walking through, I'm realizing this person isn't really giving clear directions. You're thinking you're
Mhm.
hiring for something specific, but you still have to give someone clear directions, because what one person might think of is like what you're considering might be like, oh, okay, this is my frame of mind and focus, and someone else's frame of mind and focus might be something completely different. But telling
Mhm.
someone exactly, even I'm sure when you were doing your web design, that's a perfect example of like, I had this idea in mind, the web designer went this way.
Right,
And I'm
right,
having to
right.
keep going back and telling them these updates and these steps. Make it bigger. Okay, the web design makes it 40 points bigger. And you're like, okay,
Uh-huh.
that's too big.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. No, that's absolutely getting out like our expectations to them. Yeah, for sure. Having that communication is really, 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 really
Yes, and
important.
that's where setting up systems
Yeah.
comes into play,
Hmm.
because you are putting that expectation on paper. And even if that one
Yep.
person doesn't work out, it's fine, because now you have it all documented and worked out. So the next person can come in, follow those steps, and maybe be a better fit for you.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. And, creating those kind of checklists and the due dates still work really well even if you don't have any team. So if you're doing this for yourself, creating those processes, I know I used to be like really old school. I used to actually just have my process for working through a client. It was just a piece of paper I would print out with checkboxes and I would staple it to the front of a manila envelope that would go into a rack on my wall. And that was my project management system, but it worked really well for me at the time
Yes.
because all my work was happening in my office. Like I didn't need it to be digital. I didn't need to be working from outside of
Mm-hmm.
my home at that point. So it was like everything's right here. I know where it is. I grab the folder, I check it off, I move it down. Like I had it was, those
Yes.
magazine racks like a
I
doctor's
ex
office that
As
had
soon as you
six
said it,
little
I was just thinking of a doctor or veterinarian's office, and I was just like,
Yeah.
"This is probably her background," and
Yeah, but I just would go boop,
Yes.
boop, boop. Like the top one was they were booking and then they were booked. And then we had the session and then we had everything prepped for the
Which
order. And then, so I just would move
which
it
is great
down.
because that's exactly how you can do it in a project management tool. You can have it set
Right.
up where it's like, okay, this is their first stage, and then you move it over to the next stage, and then you're moving it over. So
Hmm.
you're already putting in play that process and those steps of what you would do each time. And now it's just a digital thing that you're doing instead of putting it on the wall.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And some of those tools, I mean, my gosh, there's so many tools, and it probably depends how your brain is set up too. Cause I can see having like a Trello board or like the Kaban,
Yes.
is that what it's called? Style, where it's like you can move it from column to
Mhm.
column, kind of like I moved it down the
Yes.
wall. Or I love to use Monday.com, and that one would have like grouping. So I can move it down
Mhm.
that way, which is how I have my client management board set up, that they come in as like booking in progress, or actually inquiry, then booking in
Yes.
progress, and then, booked and set, so I just move it down the groups. Um, or those are probably the two main. Are there any other ways that people like to kind of set up a process that
So some
maybe
people love
is
a
separate than those
task
two?
list. So a list of tasks that they have
Okay.
each day that they need to do. There are different views that you can have. You can have a calendar view. So someone who likes that agenda book type of look to it, you can set it up so you can see, okay, what's on the calendar for today, tomorrow, next week, things like that. And you can add the
Yeah.
task that way too.
Yeah, I love that, and I also love having the ability, to set up like, I had it oh, man, I've used so many different systems over the years. Like, I used to use Dubsado for all of my inquiry and client management stuff, which was really good for bringing people
Hmm.
through to being booked, but it didn't really, at the time at least, have a great project management
Correct.
option for following the client after the shoot of like, okay, now I need to send an invoice.
Yes.
Now I need to order the things. Now I need to send a thank you card. Now I need to make sure it's updated in QuickBooks
Yes.
and all of that. So I would actually move that after the session was shot. I had a Todoist checklist, like you mentioned, where it was like all the things
Hmm.
that needed to happen. And I created a template that would automatically assign due dates based on when I imported it, which was awesome. Like anytime you can work your process into like pressing a button and it's like, boom, all the
Yes.
due dates are automatically assigned. I
Or an
mean,
invoice is
that's my
automatically
love language.
generated.
Yes. I mean, even
Yes.
more. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So what are some great tools? Because yeah, we were just chatting before we started here that CRMs like Dubsado and HoneyBook or
Mhm.
any of these other CRMs out there are great software. And a lot of people love to use them. And if it's working for you 100%, keep using it. That's great. But what are some other software solutions maybe that aren't so service industry specific that maybe people don't even have on their
So
radar?
I really like using ClickUp, and that's because it's an all-in-one type of tool. I've worked with so many business owners that are trying to use everything under the sun. They have all these different
Mhm.
softwares, all these different tools. Just like you were saying, I've seen them try to piece together, okay, I have Dipsado or a Honeybook, and then we're adding it to a project management tool, and then we have our SOPs in this other program, Trainial, and then we have to have Slack channel to Slack each other.
Uh-huh.
But ClickUp really has all of those things in one. So you can really talk to each other and have a chat inside the task and know exactly what you're doing, highlighting certain areas that you really want to specify, doing mock-ups and things like that. You can put your SOPs into ClickUp. There's just all sorts of things instead of having all of those, having to open all of those tabs because I know I get
Mhm.
completely overwhelmed with too many tabs open. I am the worst person to check a Slack message. Like, give me one
Oh
place
my gosh.
to find
Yeah.
everything, and that's all I can handle, just one place to find everything. If I have to look in my email, if I have to look in the Slack message, and then I have to go and search through some older files just to find what I'm looking for, I've already spent 30 minutes or an hour trying to just figure out what it
Mhm.
was we were last talking about. Where if it's just all in one
Yeah.
place, okay, if I need to find the answer to this, I just go here. I just click on what task I
Mhm.
was on. I'll click on the editing, and it has all the notes and everything in one place.
Yes. Yeah, I was actually just reading a book called Building a Second Brain, which is
Ooh,
about like how to organize our digital clutter. You would probably
okay.
love it. So
I'm
check
definitely
it
going to
out.
check it
Building a
out.
Second Brain. But it's talking about how to organize just like our digital stuff. And, you can kind of set up all the different softwares you use. Basically, it's like, oh, now I'm going to forget it because it's like projects and then resources and then archive. And there's one more in there too. But you basically kind of set things up so you know where to
Yes.
find it, whether it's on your notes app or in your Monday or in your ClickUp or in like your
See, the
Dropbox. Like
notes app,
it's
the
all kind of
Dropbox.
set up.
Now
Yeah,
we're
I
adding
know.
almost,
But like have it
it can all
all
be
in the same way.
centralized in one area, even if you don't use ClickUp,
But yeah,
because I'm not that person who tells
right.
you like you have to use this one tool. We can work with what you
Yeah.
already have to centralize everything into one area or two areas.
Hmm. Yeah, that's what we're doing on my team right now because we used to be guilty with
Yes.
Slack, and just even like a month or two ago, I'm like, all right, guys, like, can we just get
Yeah.
rid of this? Like, we're like this, no. And especially now that Monday.com, which I've used for a long time, added the docs,
Yes.
it's like, all right, let's move all of our SOPs that are over on this other platform
Exactly.
over here. And like, can we please just put everything here?
I'm glad you said you wanted to get rid of Slack too, because I've been talking about getting rid of that to so many businesses, and every time I feel like I'm going to get stoned. Everyone's like such an advocate of Slack, and every time I'm like, no, that's too many places that you have to look for the same thing.
Right, exactly. Yeah, especially when so many, ClickUp
Yes.
Monday, all these other software solutions allow you to have messaging and comments back and
Yes.
forth right there
Inside the task.
by
So
where
now
it
you
needs to
know
happen.
exactly what
Mhm.
task or exactly what person, which project you're working on,
Mhm.
and all the information is there. So if someone leaves out, now it's not in their individual email box, but it's there for anybody to
Mhm.
just come in, see where they left off, and pick up from there.
Yeah. Is ClickUp something that would be worthwhile for a solopreneur, someone that doesn't have a team yet?
Yes, so ClickUp actually has a free feature. It's free for a long time
Okay.
until you want to use some or other additional features, but a lot of the things are free, and it's very inexpensive as well. At the time of this taping,
Yeah.
it's only a few bucks a month. So it
Yeah.
is definitely something that a solopreneur can use. And just like you mentioned earlier, just outlining what you're doing, it helps you to remember things as well so that you aren't
Mhm.
forgetting, because a lot of times we're just in a free flow, and sometimes we can forget, oh, I forgot to send this proposal out, or oh, I forgot to do this. And like now it's waking you up in the middle of the night because you're like, oh, I forgot to do this. But if you had something and you were
Mhm.
documenting and putting down, like, what are the tasks that I need to do, and then streamlining it, it makes it that much easier on you. So now you don't forget things. And then it also makes it easier when you want
Mhm.
to hire, because you already have those tasks mapped out. And now someone else can just jump into your seat in that area and do those math. You can assign that same thread, that same sequence of tasks to somebody else. And now you're not like, okay, what do I have the person to do? You're not sitting there with someone that you hired that's just sitting there doing nothing, as my client had said,
Right.
but you have actual tasks for that person to do, and you have already mapped it out because it's what you do, and you know the quality is going to be high because that's exactly what you do as well.
Yeah, I love that. What advice would you give to a photographer that, is maybe just getting started and they're just looking at the sea of software solutions of how to kind of test out different ones or find the one that would work best for them?
So to me, the one that works best for you is just that. It's whichever one you pick up and you dedicate dedicate the time to. I always say start with the end in mind, though. So don't try to limit yourself based on where you are. Think about something that's going to have a lot of features of where you're going to go, and then it can grow with you. And I think that's also why I like ClickUp so much, because It can expand or contract as little or as much as you need it to. But at least you
Mm-hmm.
know you still have those features in there and available to you for if you want to, continue on or expand it more. But and ClickUp with a free account, you can definitely have something that is you're just mapping out processes, and maybe you just start there and then you're just building on it over time.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. Oh my gosh. So good. One other question too is, well, I guess just some advice for those out there that are just feeling like, oh man, I am never going to get these systems done or together, or they feel like maybe they start to put it together and then everything changes and like, well, why did I waste the time doing that? Or, just some what's the word I'm looking for? Some motivation, some advice for
Yes.
those that are struggling.
It is okay. I will say that everyone's zone of genius is not systems, and that's okay. That is exactly why sometimes people are more creative, and your zone of genius might be taking phenomenal pictures,
Mhm.
pet pictures at that. I heard that taking photos of horses is very, you wouldn't think that it's so hard, but it is very hard. They might whip you in the face with their hair or anything like that. And so that is not my zone of genius, but setting up systems definitely is. I have that organized mind where I can easily take things apart. So I'm not going to downplay the fact that there's just strengths in certain things for certain people, and other people might not be as strong. So if you are that person who is more of a creative, more of a visionary, you might need someone more like me to come in and help you out with your systems to really provide some organization and some order into things. And that's okay, because I definitely I would be hiring someone like you to take pictures because that is not my thing. I feel like I look so goofy, but I'm sure you could steer me through that. And just get started is the second piece of advice to answer your second part,
Yeah.
because systems are going to change as you grow, as you expand, as you start to get more clients. Then you notice that maybe your process might change. You might need to update. Systems do still need to be updated, every 6 months, every year, once a year, just depending on, or sooner, depending on how fast you are growing in your business. So don't think that is the one and done type of thing. It is something that you're reevaluating as you're learning more in your business.
Mhm.
You are getting new tools. You might be doing things differently as well. So that is going to be, and there's a dog in the back.
Yes. Barking at something. I don't even know what she's barking at. No one came to the door.
A nice cameo.
FedEx is not here. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
But
Thankfully, no one gets offended by a barking dog for
no.
this podcast.
But yeah, systems
No.
will change over time.
Yeah.
So it is okay, but just get something down, get something started, and that
Mhm.
will definitely lead you to success.
That's great advice too, especially for the photographers starting out, because oftentimes our process starts off a lot more simple. And then we start to add different things to improve our client experience, to make it a little bit more streamlined. So don't feel like you need to come out of the box with this like really involved,
No.
automated, sexy, amazing system. Like start with the most basic system that you can
Mhm.
possibly have, and then add to it.
And it can even start as just a spreadsheet. I mean, not spreadsheet. It can just start as something as simple as a Google document with a checklist. So if you are
Yeah.
writing out your steps in a checklist as a Google document, that will be fine. I'm sure that could work for someone for a few, quite a few clients until you are ready
Mhm.
to implement a software.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love it. This has been so, so good. Let everybody know where they can find you online and where to grab that freebie as well that you mentioned before,
Yes.
please.
So everyone, it was so great. I look forward to seeing all the pictures. But I created a special page just for your listeners. They can go to taskleygroup.com/Nicole Begley, NicoleBegley. And that's where they can get the 3 steps to automate systems in your business to scale to 6, 7, and 8 figures. They can also book a call to chat with me about their personal business systems, or connect with me on LinkedIn or IG at that same website, taskleygroup.com/Nicole Begley.
Awesome. And yeah, and definitely go spam her on Instagram with some cute dog pictures because that makes everybody's day better, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, Shanice, this has been so good. Hopefully, it's given you guys some motivation and ideas for ways to start to systematize your business a little bit, to go out and check out some of these different software solutions if you don't have one that you already love. If you have one that you love, stick with it. But if you're like, this isn't really working, or you don't have one, yeah, definitely some great opportunities out there. And let us know. Let me know at Nicole Begley Official on Instagram how you found this helpful. Definitely let Shanice know that you enjoyed this conversation. She would love to hear from you. And Shanice, thank you so much for being here with us to kick off 2023 with a call to arms to get our business a little bit more systematized, one step at a time.
Thank you, Nicole, so much for having me. I just love talking with you about this.
Of course. Yes. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you.
And everybody else, I'll see you guys next week.
Bye.